In today's episode, we talk about Punjab, where a killing at a Kabaddi tournament has exposed the sport's increasingly violent landscape. We also take a look at a government-funded research in Madhya Pradesh that is now under scrutiny. But we begin today by talking about allegations that have shaken India's shooting ecosystem. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Late last week, Ankush Bhardwaj, a former international medalist and a coach linked to the national shooting setup, was booked under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, or POCSO. The case is being investigated by the Faridabad police following a complaint filed by a minor athlete who had been training under him. Now, this case also comes against the backdrop of repeated reckonings in the Indian sport. Over the past decade, from gymnastics to wrestling to hockey, allegations of sexual harassment have surfaced with disturbing regularity. To understand how the allegations against Ankush Bhardwaj surfaced and why this case matters far beyond one coach or one sport, we speak to the Indian Express's Mihir Vasavda, the co-host of the Express Sports podcast. Mihir, for those who may not know already, what all do we know about Ankush Bhardwaj, and also how did he build his credibility and influence in the shooting landscape?
So he's a former shooter. He had been a very up and coming name, a promising shooter back around, say, 2007, 8, 9 period. So back then, shooting was still gaining prominence. India had just won a medal at the 2004 Olympics. So it had started making news. Then in 2008, Abhinav Bindra won the gold medal, which further fueled this interest in the sport. And it was also a time when India was hosting two big international sports events. One was the Commonwealth Youth Games in Pune, and then the Commonwealth Games itself in Delhi. Now, Ankush Bhardwaj won the gold medal at the Commonwealth Youth Games in Pune. So that really added to his reputation, and he was seen as this, very promising young shooter from the belt that has produced many good athletes, trained by shooter Subhash Rana, who is the brother of one of India's pistol shooting legends, Jaspal Rana. So he had many things going in his favor growing up.
Right, and so what exactly are the allegations raised against him? And what has the police investigation found so far?
So on January 6th, the police in Faridabad registered a FIR against him under Section 6 of the POCSO Act, which is Protection of Child from Sexual Offences Act, and it pertains to aggravated penetrative sexual assault, and Section 351 brackets 2, which deals with criminal intimidation. Now, he has been accused of sexually assaulting one of his students. Ankush's shooting career didn't flourish as he would have hoped. He was banned for doping once and he tried to make a comeback. He couldn't. So eventually he turned to coaching, and he had this multiple academies in Chandigarh, Mohali, that belt. And one of the trainees during the national championships, which are held in Delhi in the last week of December, going on to the first week of January, the trainee has alleged that the hotel where Ankush Bhardwaj was staying, he called her to the hotel and to his room on the pretext of analyzing her performances. And then, despite the girl resisting, he tried to force himself on her. And that is basically what happened. And this incident took place during the tournament on December 16, when she was participating in the national championships. And after the incident happened, Ankush Bhardwaj threatened the girl that if she told about it to anyone, he would kind of ruin her career and, try to intimidate her. And eventually the parents came around and they found out, they said that the girl was traumatized with what happened and eventually filed a police complaint on January 6th.
Right, and Mihir, as you mentioned earlier, that he has been building multiple training and fitness ventures, and there was also a doping suspension during his shooting career. So how significant is that for the case?
So not directly per se, but it tells us something about the person himself, his life. So the doping case is also interesting because when he tested positive in 2010, doping in shooting wasn't heard of. I think it was one of the first cases, or probably the first case in shooting that was publicly known, where he had taken performance-enhancing drugs, banned substances, which kind of stabilized the shooting arm and helped him shoot better. He's denied, doing anything wrong, but he was handed a suspension and he tried to make a comeback after that. And then, like, after he turned to coaching, he had these couple of big academies in Mohali. One was called the Shooting Cafe, and then there's a couple of others which he started with his now wife and two-time world championship medalist and Olympian shooter Anjum Mudgil. So he had a very widespread shooting network in that sense.
Right, and while the police are investigating, NRAI has suspended him and said it will issue a show cause notice. So, what does this actually change on the ground? Like, does this restrict his access to camps, events, or is this just like only official roads?
Oh no, so he was one of the national coaches. After the Paris Olympic cycle, the National Rifle Association of India, they reject the Indian coaching team. And like we discussed, because of his background, the number of trainees that he had across his academies, and knowing people in the right places perhaps, he got the role as one of the coaches in the national team. And NRAI swiftly swung into action and they suspended him, which means that he's no longer associated with the national team until, like the federation said, until he proves his innocence, he won't be associated with the national team. And at the same time, his entry to the shooting ranges will be barred. We don't know what's the status with his academies. As last known, there is an FIR against him, but I don't think there's been an arrest. So on ground, how this affects his academy is not known, but he's not associated with the national team anymore right now.
And Mihir, we know that this isn't an isolated case. There have been other such cases across different sports. So could you tell our listeners about a few of such cases, where athletes said the system didn't exactly protect them? And also, are there any common threads in these cases?
So there are, if we look at, say, last 10 years or last 15 years, there have been numerous cases of sexual harassment in Indian sport, especially in relation to coaches and athletes. There was a parliamentary committee report a few years ago which highlighted this specific problem where they spoke about the coaches trying to use their position of power and misbehave or sexually harass women athletes, threatening them to ruin their career and using all ways possible. In 2021, we had done a story of analyzing of all the sexual harassment cases registered with the Sports Authority of India from 2010 to 2019, and we found that there were more than 40 cases, and in half of them, there were coaches involved, and there wasn't strict punishment against them. Following the report, there was suspension and there was action taken against them, but that still hasn't stopped any of these cases. We have had cases of like Brijbhushan Sharan, which is currently sub judice. It's been heard at the courts in Delhi. Of course, that case relates to the wrestlers alleging that he sexually harassed them as the president of the federation. And then there was a junior athletics coach in Haryana who filed a complaint against former Haryana sports minister and former hockey player, India hockey player Sandeep Singh. You've had another incident as recent as April 2025 when a national level judo athlete filed a petition against her coach, saying that the coach took her to a farmhouse and harassed her during a training session. So there is a pattern, there is a trend, and despite in some cases action being taken against the coaches, it really hasn't deterred anyone so far.
And also, Mihir, the problem of sexual harassment is prevalent in pretty much every field. But what do you think makes these athlete-coach relationships so vulnerable to exploitation?
The main reason is that at least in the early years of an athlete's career, her entire career is in the hands of the coach. The way the dynamics work is the coach is responsible, A, to train her, then to select her for the team, and then to ensure that she gets necessary exposure, tournament exposure, and training. So a lot of times the athletes fear that if they do not comply with the coach's requests, quote unquote, or approaches, or they do not, do what he says, they fear that their careers will be ruined. And for many of these athletes, they tend to put all eggs in one basket. For them, there is no plan B. There are few plan Bs rather. There is no real education to fall back on. Most of them come from a very humble background. So sport is a way out of poverty for them. And the fear is genuine from what we've analyzed, that if they go against the coach, then their athletic careers will be ruined and their lives consequently will be ruined. So that's the power dynamics that really kind of aids the coaches to be predators on the sporting field.
Right, and as you said, that young athletes fear backlash, especially when the coach is well networked. So, what formal complaint routes exist today for an athlete in a national camp? And do athletes actually trust them?
The problem actually is awareness. Trust becomes secondary. What we've found out from a lot of anecdotal evidence is that the athletes aren't completely aware of their rights, especially the younger ones. They aren't sensitized enough. Not just female athletes, but even the male athletes and male coaches aren't sensitized enough how to behave, the kind of language they have to use around women athletes. Because we're talking about at training centers, especially the government-run training centers, the Sports Authority of India training centers, you have minors training there. They scout children around the age of 13 or 14 or 12 and then provide them with residential facilities and education and sports training. So you're talking about very young children who are in an alien environment away from their family. So the first problem is awareness. The second is sensitization. The male coaches, the male athletes who are in the same campus, they perhaps aren't sensitized enough to with their behavior and aren't really told what's right, what's wrong, even if it doesn't come to them naturally. And then when you say what are the avenues for them, like in normal workplace situation, right? There are the POSH guidelines, the prevention of sexual harassment guidelines. There are committees to oversee them. One of the things we had noticed during our investigation a couple of years ago when the Wrestling Federation incident happened is more than half of India's sports federation didn't have a POSH committee as mandated by the government. Following the report, the Supreme Court intervened and the federations were told to activate their POSH committees. So that is one avenue. And then you have got helpline centers, and there are ways for athletes to register a complaint. But like you said, perhaps the trust factor comes in, and also the fear factor, because they fear that if the coach in this case gets to know that there's been a complaint against him, their careers might be ruined.
And next, we turn to another sport that is going through its own reckoning. Last month, unidentified assailants shot a 30-year-old Kabaddi player and promoter moments after taking a selfie with him following a match in Mohali. Kanwar Digvijay Singh, also known as Rana Balachoria, was critically injured and rushed to the hospital, where he was declared brought dead. This killing has shattered the long-held belief that Kabaddi, so closely tied to rural life in Punjab, is a peaceful sport. Many now see it as an evidence that the game has become both high stakes and increasingly violent. To understand how and why this shift has happened, my colleague Niharika Nanda speaks with the Indian Express's Kanchan Vasudev.
Kanchan, tell us what Kabaddi has meant for people in Punjab and what are the ways in which it has now transitioned?
Niharika, for many years, for decades, Kabaddi has been a mainstay of Punjab's rural life. With Punjabi youngsters playing the sport in the fields and school grounds. They would just play it in the agriculture fields only, It has been leveled and soft clay has been poured over it. So it has been an intrinsic part of the religious fairs in the state. And also the village festivals, like every village has a festival in some part of the year or the other. And the sport was played over there and massive crowds used to be there. And the participation was eager. But now it has been turned into a high-stakes business. It's like a multi-crore game, and it's now marred by big money, betting syndicates, rival federations, gangsters, and all have found a foothold in the game. Now it is a game which used to be from a rural akhada to shadowy economy now, and it's the traditional sport that has transitioned not in a good way.
But Kanchan, when would you say this transition took place?
It is said that during the late 1990s and early 2000s, when the organizers they started offering cash prizes to the tune of lakhs of rupees. Earlier there were traditional rewards, there were like cups, made of those brass and which were usually given in the tournaments at the junior level. And then when the big money started coming in, then this presented a new opportunity for the state's rural youth who otherwise had a very few job options. So they thought that this is a path to quick money. Then there were sponsors, then there were local businessmen, transporters, and real estate players who started backing the individual teams. So this is when it happened.
And while this could have been a great thing for professional players, they could get paid a lot more, it instead took a wrong turn, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Because the big money came in, and I talked about the 1990s when the NRIs, they started coming to India with a lot of money, especially in the Doaba region of the state, which has many NRIs compared to the other two regions of the state. So they actually transformed the sport. They brought big money into Kabaddi. Then there are some police reports that indicate that a part of this money was related to drugs trade. There was a drug trade racket known as Jagdish Pola drug racket in Punjab, which was busted in 2013-2014 time. So that time, this kind of money was being used in the Kabaddi matches, which was at a peak. And then after this racket was unearthed, there was a brief lull, because several NRI Kabaddi promoters, who were former players also, tournament organizers, they were accused of this racket. Then the money still flew, but through the murkier routes, not directly like it used to be. So over the following years, the sport became even more lucrative with growing prize money, as well as vehicles such as tractors, combined harvesters, Royal Enfield motorbikes being given as prizes. Then a lot of tractor companies also started to sponsor the events and prizes, because obviously they have to target the rural audience. So they thought the akhadas and the kabaddi stadiums were the best place to advertise their products. So the best players now are given tractors, SUVs, and this has been going on for a long time now. So in this recent Sohana tournament where this murder took place, the prize was a tractor and several lakh rupees for different matches. That's how it was.
But Kanchan, how much cash is usually involved in these games? And apart from NRIs, where does this money come from?
The tournaments, they started ranging between rupees 1 lakh to rupees 40 lakh if held in Punjab. And several times for those held abroad, these could cost 1 lakh pounds, or in Toronto about 4-5 lakh dollars. It was like that, the kind of prize money. So the Punjab government, it also increases prize money to crores of rupees, awarding rupees 7 crore in prizes in the 4th World Cup in 2013. This was during the sad BJP regime in the state. At that time, the Deputy Chief Minister was Sukhbir Singh Badal. So he said that he is going to promote Kabaddi in a big way. So he would offered a cash prize of rupees 7 crore that time. So he wanted to promote it, saying that it's Punjab's own support, and then his government was also battling drugs in the state. There was a lot of anti-incumbency, saying that this government has not been able to control the drugs, which was quite a menace. But after that, after the government was voted out in 2017, the tournaments was discontinued. Now it is said that the sport is about 100 crore annually, and the tournament trophies alone are worth rupees 10 crore. This is the kind of prize money.
And how did the involvement of money make the game so violent to the extent that a pattern of murders has also emerged? Can you give us some examples of this extreme violence?
Yeah, the murders that have taken place in the past are like 10-15 in the last 5-6 years. The major ones are Sandeep Nangalambiya, a prominent player who was shot dead in 2022 when this government took over. Then Hardeep Singh was another player who was killed in September 2023. Then Arvinderjeet Singh Padda and Gurmej, they were killed in 2020. Then several murders have taken place in 2025 like Tejpal, Gurvinder Singh, Sukhvinder Singh Noni, and this recent one, Rana Balacharya, who was also gunned down. So multiple killings have occurred in 2025 also. It shows a pattern, violence is there, and which involves Kabaddi figures, and it's a public safety concern also.
And Kanchan, as far as the murder of Kanwar Digvijay Singh and Gagandeep Singh is concerned, what is the police investigation saying?
Niharika, in case of Rana Balacharya's murder, a team of Punjab Police Anti-Gangster Task Force has arrested 2 shooters on Monday and their accomplices involved in the murder, and they have been identified as Karan Pathak alias Karan Defaulter and Akashdeep. They were arrested with the assistance of Sikkim Police, Mumbai Police, West Bengal, STF, central agencies and the local Howrah Police. And as of now, total of 5 accused have been arrested. 2 accused are identified as Ashdeep Singh and Davinder Singh. They were arrested earlier. And DGP Gaurav Yadav on Monday only said that Karan Pathak and Tarandeep Singh are shooters, while Akashdeep, who's a close relative of foreign-based handler Amar Khabe, he has also been apprehended for providing shelter and logistic support to the shooters. In case of Gagandeep Singh, 5 people have been arrested. All of them were harboring the shooters, and shooters are yet absconding.
Right, and as more and more money flowed in and the stakes grew higher, you write that betting and match fixing also increased. And over time, gang violence has also emerged as another serious threat to the sport. Could you talk to us about that?
There is money, then there are gangsters. Whenever there is a lot of money, then they're always, they're watching it. Then it is illegal betting and match fixing. And finally, that also attracts the gangsters. And what compounds the problem is that the gangsters, they vie for dominance over the sport. They think that if there is this player, then he has to be supported by me. And some other gangsters butts in, then there is violence. Then these gangsters, they seek to influence all aspects of a tournament organization. They are dictating everything from the celebrity guests to the prize distribution. Then they will choose the sponsors. They even get that these industrialists will come and they will sponsor. And then the real estate developers, etc., they are coerced into funding the events. They are threatened, of violence. Then all this allows gangs to launder money legally or illegally through advertisements and promotions. That is what the police officers, they say. So there's a pattern.
But Kanchan, what is the reason that things have gone so out of hand? Is there no authority or no governing body to regulate Kabaddi and the associated leagues?
Actually, the biggest problem in Kabaddi is that there's absence of a strong, unified governing body in the state. Anyone can register a federation under the Societies Act in Punjab. And these federations are not affiliated with Amateur Kabaddi Federation of India, which is the national sports body. AKFI is affiliated to the International Kabaddi Federation, Asian Kabaddi Federation and Indian Olympic Association. It is recognized by the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports Government of India. But in Punjab, there is no governing body. Then in the state, multiple federations have been constituted in the past, and they have political and personal patronage. And then each federation organizes its own tournaments. They have their own teams and they follow their own rules. So there's no standard code of conduct as per se. So no proper contract for players are there. There's no disciplinary system. And then they even say that the dope testing is also not done. So whenever there are allegations of fixing or violence, there's no single authority that has the power to act. They allow illegal money to flow unchecked. So that is where the problem lies.
So what do you think can be the solution for this problem? What do experts have to say about this?
They said that usually this crackdown on the illegal betting and match fixing, which is the root cause of the problem, which attracts the gangsters consequently. So the crackdown has to be there. Then regular audits and monitoring of cash flows and sponsors can reduce the uncounted revenue that gangs exploit. And then known criminals like gangsters, they also have to be banned from the game. Individuals can be barred. Their criminal records can be checked. Even the sponsors should be asked whether they are being coerced into promoting these events and all. And then the anti-gangster task force is also there. They can monitor the links between Kabaddi circuits and organized crime. They are doing it. I keep talking to the police officers. They say they are at it. And then last but not the least, transparent prize money systems have to be there. They have to see there's no black money. So income tax is paid. These should be the digital transfers, and then reputable sponsors and sports development programs have to be there. Sponsors should have to be reputable. They have to be income tax payees. They can't be just laundering their black money in the form of these prizes. That's all can be done.
And in the end, we shift our focus to Madhya Pradesh, where a government-funded project exploring cow products to cure cancer has come under scrutiny. The project, launched in 2011, was embroiled in controversy following allegations of financial irregularities and questionable expenditure. The project was conducted at Nanaji Deshmukh Veterinary Science University in Jabalpur and received 3.5 crore rupees in state funding between 2011 and 2018. As reported by the Indian Express's Anand Mohan J, the research focused on Panchgavya, a traditional formulation made using cow dung, cow urine, milk, curd and ghee, and its potential application in treating serious diseases, including cancer. And so it was following a complaint received by district authorities that the divisional commissioner ordered an examination of the project's implementation. An investigation team led by an additional collector was constituted to review spending patterns, procurement, and project outcomes. The inquiry report has since been submitted to the district collector. Anand further notes that the investigation flagged multiple expenditures that appeared disproportionate to the market rates and in some cases unrelated to the approved research objectives. The report alleges that approximately 1.92 crore rupees was spent on basic materials such as cow dung, cow urine, storage vessels, raw materials and machinery. Items investigators said should have cost between 15 lakh rupees to 20 lakh rupees at prevailing prices. The inquiry also raised questions about travel expenses. The project records showed 23 to 24 air journeys undertaken to various cities for research purposes. Investigators questioned the necessity of these trips and noted that such travel was not included in the original sanctioned estimates. Additional expenditures under scrutiny include the purchase of a vehicle worth Rs 7.5 lakh, fuel and maintenance expenses exceeding 7.5 lakh rupees, labour payments of about 3.5 lakh rupees, and spending of nearly 15 lakh rupees on furniture and electronic equipment. The investigation noted that some vehicles listed as purchased could not be traced during verification. Anand also highlights that the university has denied allegations of misappropriation. Registrar S.S. Tomar said all purchases were made through open tender processes and in compliance with government financial rules. He stated that the project was regularly audited and that all documents were submitted to the investigation committee. University officials have maintained that the project continues to operate and provide training to farmers and youth. The investigation report will now be reviewed by the Divisional Commissioner, who will decide on further administrative or legal action. You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Shashank, Bhargava, Niharika, Nanda and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.